Stugotz here. You may not be able to run, throw, or catch like a professional athlete, but now that it's spring, you can get your lawn looking like a professional sports field, assuming your lawn gear will start. That's it. Stop by Advanced Auto Parts. They'll test your lawn and garden battery for free. If it needs to be replaced, they have Autocraft lawn and garden batteries starting at just $22.99. Plus, enter the code DAN20 when you buy online to save 20%. Think ahead. Think advance at Advanced Auto Parts. The Dan Le Batard with Stugotz Show podcast is presented by Capital One. This is Banking Reimagined.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz podcast.
Stugotz can't say fraudulently. He can only be it. He is in the middle of a pandemic. And before we get to a couple of items from yesterday that require cleaning up, he isn't, under the best of circumstances, a fountain of perspective, but today he is complaining, and loudly, about skim milk. As America descends into a hellhole, Stugotz won't shut up about his wife buying skim milk. He's really at the height of suffering here.
Dan, it is so deflating because I really only have milk when I have cereal. And the cereal is just as important, the milk is just as important an ingredient to a good bowl of cereal as the cereal itself. The milk needs to be cold, really cold, and it also needs to be whole milk. Okay? So when I open up my fridge and there's fat-free milk and I want a nice bowl of Frosted Flakes after my jog this morning, okay? I want some whole milk, not skim milk, not fat-free milk. And my wife is sitting around here, and she's yelling at me saying, hey, it's healthier. It will help you lose weight. It will help you keep some weight off. Plus, it's healthier for our daughters. I said, do me a favor. When you go grocery shopping, shop for them and then shop for me. I want whole milk. It ruins a good bowl of cereal. Does it not?
Yeah. All right. Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Does skim milk ruin a good bowl of cereal?
And I would say, now that I'm thinking about it, I know Frosted Flakes are good. I know Lucky Charms are good. They can be ruined by bad milk. So I would say that whole milk itself, is the more important of the two ingredients in a good bowl of cereal. How about that?
I just saw Roy eat a breakfast Dorito. Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Should people be eating Doritos for breakfast? I'm sorry. He just corrected me. It wasn't a breakfast Dorito. It was one of those peanut butter cracker cookies that are disgusting from a vending machine. Roy, were you trying to make that better by holding up the peanut butter cracker? Because you didn't make it any better. You tried to make a correction on Doritos, and instead you put up one of those disgusting peanut butter cracker situations. What are you doing? Can you even speak into the mic with peanut butter in your mouth?
Yes, I can, Dan.
Okay.
That's all you're going to get from me, though.
All right. Thank you for all of your efforts. We appreciate it. I'm glad Mike just threw the headset from his head into the speaker on my computer so you could give us that quality content.
It's a real dance Mike has to do just to get those guys on the air.
It's so bad. And so I want to correct, now that they're on the air, because this feud broke out yesterday, I want to correct a couple of things from yesterday. I think, one, we need to revoke or think about some sort of revolt or anarchy when it comes to the commish Sarah Spain and what it is that she picked as the best nominee on these fat action movie titles, because I think she chose horribly in choosing Pie Hard. I mean, we had so many good ones. We had Parmageddon. We had Jurassic Pork. We had The Fugitive. And what did she do? She went Pie Hard. And I feel we need to correct that. Before we correct that, a riot has broken out among everybody on the show because they think Knives Out is a lot better than I thought Knives Out was. Now, Daniel Craig, his southern accent was distracting. He shouldn't have even been in the movie, never mind the star of the movie, never mind as a southern detective in the movie. But the idea that that movie got like a 97 rating on Rotten Tomatoes, Stugotz, you were saying if I don't like a movie, you're sure to like a movie.
Well, that's the rule we all have on the show. If you don't like it, we rush to see it. I mean, that's how we determine good movies.
So put it on the poll, Guillermo, please, at Le Batard Show. If Dan doesn't like a movie, is Stugotz sure to like that movie? But, Tony, why do you think I'm wrong on this? You cannot argue that Daniel Craig was good in that role. You won't argue it.
I'm not going to argue that he was good in the role. I think that the more important thing was the movie surrounding Daniel Craig was actually really good. I mean, his accent was distracting. He was trying to be somebody that he cannot play in any sort of role, but I thought it was a really good movie other than his accent.
I thought that cast was so good, and I was hoping when I saw that cast and 97 on Rotten Tomatoes, I thought, okay, this is going to be an extraordinary movie. And I understand that part of the thing that is diluting it for me is that I went into it with great expectations because of the cast and because of that rating. So I'm not saying it was a horrible movie. I'm just saying that my expectations for it were through the roof, and it was just sort of just empty calories, silly, empty movie. But another one I saw, have you guys seen Uncut Gems yet? Because Adam Sandler, he was winning, he was an Oscar snub. That's a funny sentence to say, all right? Adam Sandler was an Oscar snub because he absolutely did a good job in the movie in terms of putting on you a film of stress and pressure, because the whole movie you're watching a degenerate gambler sort of fall apart, and as he's doing this you can feel the stress of it. And he won Best Actor in one of these fringe award shows that wasn't the Oscars, and he gave a great acceptance speech that you guys should look up on the internet because we don't have any ability to clear the sound. But have you guys, who has seen Uncut Gems? Any of you? Nope, it's just Tony. Tony has seen Uncut Gems. Which one was better, Tony? Uncut Gems or Knives Out?
It was definitely Uncut Gems, and I think the point that you're making, where they make you feel the tension when he gets into the room. No spoiler alerts, but when he gets into the room, somebody's talking to him. He's getting the doctor receiving the diagnosis from his thing in the beginning of the movie. You're just wrapped up in all of his emotions, and on top of that, somebody's trying to get him, and it's crazy. I thought Uncut Gems was incredible.
I've got a list in front of me here from USA Today. I've got a list in front of me of the 20 best basketball movies of all time. Yeah, you've been waiting for this show all your life. Now, I don't believe that over the last 50 years we actually make good basketball movies. There are very few of them that you're going to find. But Stugotz, your favorite basketball movie is what?
Hoop Dreams.
All right, so Hoop Dreams was a good one, and on this list, it's number 2. It's number 2 on this list. If you were to list has America made 5 good basketball movies? Yes or no? Put that on the poll, Guillermo, at Le Batard Show. Has America made 5 good basketball movies? Because as soon as I saw Ben Affleck, the commercials, now this is not fair. It may indeed be a good movie. I'm reading reviews that say that Ben Affleck did a great job of acting, that it's a bit of a personal story because of his own struggles with addiction, and that the character goes deep and it's not just a basketball movie. But Ben Affleck, we would agree that as an actor, Ben Affleck is a kind of a stiff, right? He's a better director than he is as an actor. And so people are saying that he did this role well, but when I saw the commercials for this role, and it got a very limited release because of the coronavirus, it had a budget of $40 million and ended up making about $13 million, and now it's going straight to video faster because of everything that's happening with the coronavirus. But that didn't look like a movie that I would see under any circumstances, that there would be any, I like sports. I have liked many of Ben Affleck's movies. I watched that and I was like, I will absolutely not watch that movie. Will you watch that movie, Mike?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because it has good reviews. And, I do like sports movies. I think they're a bit formulaic, but anytime Ben Affleck actually has praise, because his career goes through the same sort of waves, critically acclaimed, gets an Oscar, then starts taking bad roles, does the big budget superhero role that gets critically panned, and then he starts doing the art projects again and starts having to do critically acclaimed films again.
Let me ask cycle, Mike.
On your it's a Ben Affleck cycle. He never learns from his past mistakes. Let me ask you a question about this list. Is Forget Paris on there?
Let me see if Forget Paris. It is on here. Forget Paris is on here. It's very low on the list. Chris Cody has something that he wishes to say about what? About Ben Affleck or about Way Back the movie?
I mean, you're saying that there aren't any good basketball movies out there. I can name 3 right off the top of my head. Space Jam, semi-pro, Joanna Man.
Boom.
Like, what are you talking about?
Boom.
Mike. Like,
And you left out
Blue
Blue Chips.
Blue Chips is number 20 on
Yes!
this list. Joanna Man. All right, look at what I'm dealing with around here. If Joanna Man is where it is you're going with good basketball movies, then I probably don't have much of a chance on this discussion.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests on the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Pennzoil synthetic motor oils are made from natural gas. It gives you unbeatable engine protection. The proof is in the Pennzoil, based on Sequence 4A wear test using SAE 5W-30. Here's your SportsCenter update. Among those in sports who have recently been tested positive for COVID-19 or Celtics guard, Marcus Smart, 2 identified players from the Lakers and 3 individuals from the 76ers organization, bringing the NBA's count up to 14. Saints head coach Sean Payton has also tested positive. NFL news, the Rams have cut Todd Gurley and Clay Matthews. Todd Gurley, just 25 years old. Feels like he's been around forever. Gurley then signed with the Falcons on a 1-year deal. The Broncos have cut Joe Flacco. The Cowboys and safety HaHa Clinton Dix have agreed to a 1-year deal worth $4 million with $2.5 million guaranteed. And the Lions have traded corner Darius Slay to the Eagles for 3rd and 5th round picks. And finally, Liam Gallagher wants to play a one-off Oasis reunion gig for charity once the coronavirus blows over. SportsCenter brought to you by Bolt 24. An athlete is an athlete 24/7. And part of always being prepared is always being hydrated. Bolt 24 has antioxidant vitamins A and C, electrolytes from watermelon and sea salt, no artificial sweeteners or flavors. Bolt 24 is all-day hydration for all-day athletes. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day. Excuse me. It is, I just got word that Dan is not there, which means the entire show is not there because Mike was controlling the other guys. Chris is waving to me. Thank you, Chris. That is very helpful. All the guys are waving. Billy, Tony, Roy, everywhere. Roy's not waving, but Chris is. And Chris, it is helpful to see your smiling face. But I do love a segment removed from yelling at me for getting disconnected. Dan's entire internet went down. I mean, seriously. I got a $50 fine if we want to go back a segment here because Dan just got mad at me. But luckily, Amin Elhassan has called in on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Amin, what's going on? Amin has some issues, I think, with our basketball movie list. What's going on, Amin?
Yeah, first of all, thanks a lot, Stu. I miss you, man. I miss looking at you. How about that?
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do, man. I got the show on my TV, and it's got the graphic, and the pictures just don't do you guys justice. Right. None of them look like you. Well, Dan's looks like Dan, but all the rest.
Now, you want to know what's funny? I did a full breakdown. I mean, it's funny because I'm starting to lose my mind. Okay, I mean, I probably did a long, long time ago, but I have stared at that logo and that graphic so much that I made in my notes. I have taken notes on each individual in that graphic, what they do, how well. I've committed it to memory, as a matter of fact. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, Billy's looks like like he's aging. He doesn't even look. It doesn't look anything like Billy.
Well, Billy just looks side to side. He looks at Allison, then and then he's looking. It looks like he's trying to get someone in trouble, or he's going to be happy when someone gets in trouble. Am I wrong?
He does. He does have that bleep-eating grin on his face, right. Kind of like when he's about to instigate. You know how he instigates in the studio. That's what he looks like. He looks like he's about to do that right now. Roy is smiling like it. That's cocktail hour, Roy. That's not regular Roy right there. That grin doesn't come out.
That's not Roy at work, Roy. Yeah, you're right.
Dan somehow looks slim. I don't know if this is because it's old or because the artist just felt bad for him.
Here are my notes on Dan. Dan's head does an odd shimmy before it moves its eyes. Every time before it moves his eyes, his head does an odd shimmy. He only looks straight ahead, and then he looks up at Billy, which has to be straining on his neck, considering the positioning of Billy. But they did a great job on Dan's right eyebrow.
You're writing this down. What a waste of everybody's time. The internet is back. I mean, why are you calling? What is your objection to the basketball list?
Everyone's looking at the logo. It's all you can see on our TV.
My objection is that you guys had Teen Wolf. Well, I know it wasn't your list, but you mentioned Teen Wolf as a top 10 movie, and you didn't even bring up That was the subject of the very first Black in My Day, before Black in My Day even had a name. It was that Teen Wolf is an extremely racist movie. It's an allegory for white people fetishizing what it must be to be black. Because you think about it, he's Scott Howard. He didn't have a lot of luck with the ladies, all that stuff. He's terrible at basketball. Then he becomes a quote-unquote werewolf. All of a sudden, he's amazing at basketball. And by the way, amazing in a very particular showboaty hot dog. That's not the way we win games. That's more of an I versus we kind of style of play. He's a hit with the ladies, although that angers some members of the community. I can't believe you're going out with him, quotes in there. He's a great dancer. He's giving high fives to people. Everything about his life is like, oh, this is what white people think black people life must be like. But then at the end, because it is a movie that was made in Hollywood, we have to reiterate, but it's better to be white, though. So that's why he turns back to Scott Howard, and they win the championship by sharing the ball and playing basketball, quote-unquote, the right way.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please. Is Teen Wolf racist? How do you feel about Hoosiers?
Oh, yeah. Well, Hoosiers is much more well documented. It's racism in there baked in. And Bomani does a much better job than I could ever do. I also think it's a very boring movie. And also the reason why most NBA owners fire coaches, because they see their coaches on the sideline not acting like Gene Hackman, and they think, he's not coaching. He doesn't have a rolled-up piece of paper, and he's not yelling at guys and speaking in cliches. And that's why those guys get fired, because they aren't behaving in the stereotypical way that many NBA owners and many NBA fans have been conditioned to think this is what coaching looks like.
Now that the NBA has said, hey, you guys can't even come and practice at the facility, we were talking to Cody Zeller, and he was saying between each set they were disinfecting all of their weight room stuff, but now that's not even allowed. What percentage of the league is coming back fat here? I mean,
oh, you think they're coming back? Oh, bless your heart, Dan Le Batard. You are an optimist. Dan, I don't know how you do it. Let's just assume. And I'm not even talking about the pandemic. Let's just assume we get it under control within 8 weeks and we are able to have at least games in an empty arena, at the very least. You asking a bunch of guys who haven't been able to work out at all because they can't go to, it's not like they can go to Lifetime or 24-hour fitness and get their work in. Those places are all closed. So it's not even like coming in fat. It's the risk of injury after that much inactivity. And I know a lot of people like to think, oh, these guys have basketball courts and full weight rooms in their house. But a lot of these players live in apartments and condos that aren't far from the practice facility, especially if you're a younger guy. So there's not a whole lot of opportunity to stay in shape, get basketball shape, game shape when you're at home and you can't work out anywhere. And so even if we come back in 8 weeks, we're going to need like a full training camp for people just to get back in shape, but we probably won't have enough time for that. So to me, that hearing the practice facilities closing down was the nail in the coffin in my head, that I don't think this is going to happen. I don't think we're going to have a rest of the season.
Amin, does Adam Silver basically have like all the tests right now? I don't understand, and I understand that people with power and wealth and resources are going to take care of their own employees, and that's just the fact of the matter here in the United States. But I am a little confused as to how they're getting all these tests for players without symptoms.
Well, I think there's a couple of things. There is a very, I think, rational explanation that NBA players have a much higher opportunity to spread this thing than most regular people, because they travel a lot and because people generally want to be near them, hug them, high-five them, get an autograph, take a picture. All of these things make them in much closer contact with a lot more people than most other regular citizens. But then on top of that, because these guys are in great physical shape, they have probably a higher chance of being silent carriers, asymptomatic, walking around sharing this thing. So once we know that someone has been infected, there is, I think, a reasonable desire for the other people who have come in contact with them, whether it was playing a game against them or being with them in the locker room or what have you, to find out whether they have been infected or not. But the other part of this is, Mike, they're going to, most of these people are going through private means. And yes, imagine that. And in a time like this, the almighty dollar does speak. and people are able and capable of procuring these, especially when you consider you can purchase, or some of these entities have purchased these tests from overseas, right? There's a shortage here in the United States. There is not a shortage worldwide of these testing kits. Everywhere else, they're pretty good at testing as far as in the industrialized world. There just is a shortage here in the United States. And so that's the thing that people have to keep in mind. It's not like they're going down to your local hospital and grabbing the kits that you would have used to be tested there. They're getting them from alternate means.
Thank you for being on with us. We appreciate it, buddy. Take care.
No problem, guys. Take it easy.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Small business protection for more than vehicles with insurance expertise to keep your company moving forward. More at progressivecommercial.com. Check him out today. Stan Van Gundy, we miss him, our old friend. He's going to join us here on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Here's your SportsCenter update. Sources have told ESPN that because NFL teams are unable to oversee physicals due to the coronavirus outbreak, they are adding provisions in player contracts stating that failed physicals will result in forfeited signing bonus money. Red Sox pitcher Chris Sale will undergo Tommy John surgery. Keep giving the pitchers big money. And finally, venous trophophobia is the fear of beautiful women. Here's the Select Quote difference. Most companies give you one option, one policy, one rate. But Select Quote shops it could get you up to 10 options from highly rated life insurance companies. For a free personalized quote, do what I did. Call 800-780-1010 or go to selectquote.com today. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in the SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please. Did you know there was a phobia that existed that is the fear of beautiful women? Chris, put together a list of 10 of some of those best titles so that we can go to Stan Van Gundy and see which of those he likes the best. We miss our friend Stan Van Gundy. He is now a game analyst for TNT alongside Ian Eagle, or Ian. Yeah, it's Ian Eagle, and he is exceptional, by the way. Is it Ian or Ian? It's Ian?
Ian, yeah. Good save.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
So, big fine. So, Stan Van Gundy is with us now on ESPN Radio. And before we get started here on anything else, it's important that we get your top 5 basketball movies of all time. I think America stinks at making basketball movies, but I want Stan Van Gundy's opinion on the top 5 basketball movies ever made.
Okay, so am I starting with 1 or starting with 5?
Well, you start with 5, Stan.
Let's start with number 5. Are you ready? Number 5, the 5th best basketball movie of all time, according to Stan Van Gundy, is?
The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh.
Of course.
Number 4, it's an old one. It's 1979. It is an old one.
Come on, it's a good one now.
It is.
It was one of the first good ones, yes, and we haven't made a whole lot since. Number 4.
White Men Can't Jump.
An excellent choice, exactly the same as USA Today. They put that at number 4. Number 3.
Coach Carter.
Yes, Coach C.
Well, no, listen, I'm biased on that one because it's a true story, and Kenny Carter and I graduated from high school the same year in the same part of California, played against each other, played in all-star games, both with and against each other, so I know Kenny and enjoyed seeing him in the movie. So, and he has done great things in a tough area there in California. So I'm a little biased on that one.
And Samuel L. Jackson did a good job portraying your friend?
Yeah, and I saw Kenny at a Laker game years ago, right when the movie came out, and gave him a hard time. Like, come on, man, how do you get Samuel? Kenny looks like me, short, not thin, the whole thing. You got Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, like, come on. I mean, that wasn't fair. But the movie was good. I liked it.
Number 2, according to Stan Van Gundy.
Glory Road. And I didn't think it was necessarily a great, great movie, but the story it told was one of the best in basketball history. So I really liked it.
And the best basketball movie of all time, according to Stan Van Gundy, is?
Come on, you knew I was going here. Hoosiers.
Oh, I thought it was overrated. I really do.
Blue Chips.
Come on.
Yes.
The Blue Chips. Come on, man. That was funny, though. I'll tell you what was an underrated basketball movie because it wasn't maybe primarily about basketball, but it certainly was featured in there a lot, was Finding Forrester.
You mentioned all of these are on the list that we just gave people. I wanted to talk to you about some of the stuff that is going on in the world and in sports, but maybe not your sport. What did you make of that news that was just read during the flash there about the NFL, tying some of this contract money and failed physicals for the coronavirus allows them to take some of that money back? You were an executive of the Detroit Pistons. These things can be complicated. You hear that news and you think what?
Well, look, I mean, these NFL owners are all strapped for money. These are guys we should really be feeling sorry for. And if there's a way to save these nearly destitute people some money, I'm all for it. I mean, at this time, we have to take care of the least among us, Dan. And these owners are people that we need to be looking out for.
What did you make as a baseball fan? What did you make of everything that was going on with the Astros?
Well, by the way, speaking of that, my brother's wife sent me a text yesterday. She had read it somewhere else, sent it to me to say none of the Astros have tested positive for the coronavirus. They saw the signs of it coming before the rest of us.
Oh, God.
So, look, they clearly cheated, and it was sort of minimized, I thought, by a lot of people. I think it's a bigger issue than steroids. If we're going to have clearly great players kept out of the Hall of Fame because of steroid use, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, maybe A-Rod, because of steroid use, then and have no effect whatsoever, no effect at all on the careers of Astros hitters. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
Stan, what do you make of the NBA and them? They seem like they still want to finish off this season, and I would say that it's a bit unseemly considering everything that's going on, and it seems like a lot of people, guys, players in Adam Silver's league has tested positive for the coronavirus, and we'll see what the final numbers are. But I'd rather hear the NBA and Adam Silver stop talking about charity games and this and that and start talking about, hey, just stay home. This season's canceled.
Listen, I think when it all comes down to it, I have great confidence that Adam Silver will make the right decision. He'll do the right thing. But listen, one of the things that the NBA has been as good at as anybody, maybe the best, is turning this into a 12-month-a-year, 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week league. They're always in the news. And to just say, hey, we're going to go away for the rest of the season right now would take you out of the news cycle. So I think right now they'll try to remain optimistic, and they'll talk about it, and they'll give fans hope that they're coming back. But at the end of the day, let's judge them on what they do, and I'd be shocked if they did anything even remotely irresponsible. I mean, listen, the country shut down, I would argue, at the leadership of the NBA. I mean, that's when everything started. A couple of colleges in California had made the decision to shut down. I was out there a week ago Tuesday doing the Warrior game. I mean, this is how quickly all this has happened. Same day, my parents and my brother were at a spring training game here. Wednesday night, the NBA suspended the season. And when Adam Silver did that, everything followed from there. All the leagues, the NCAA, and then beyond sports to all entertainment stuff, schools. But it was started with the leadership of the NBA. I think the league has been on the right side of things quite often. I trust Adam Silver to make the right decision. Let's see what happens. But there's no real reason to just write it off right now.
Stan Van Gundy with us on ESPN Radio. I've been hypothesizing that guys are going to come back fat if you don't allow them in the practice facility, if you don't allow them to work out anywhere but home, and they can't really get basketball training. Like, even if they do come back, Stan, it's going to take a minute for everybody to get back in shape.
Yeah, because I think this is even a lot different than when the season starts. And you make a great point, Dan. I mean, when we're getting ready for the start of the season, guys are amping up as they get into August and September and they're getting ready for training camp, and then training camp is getting them ready for the exhibition games, which are getting them ready for the regular season and the whole thing. Now we're basically saying to players, go home, can't come in the facility. We don't want you going to other gyms to work out. It'll be impossible for them to stay in shape. And if this is going to go into June or July, you're going to have a lot of players in the worst shape they have been in probably in years. If you bring them back, you're going to have to give them plenty of time to ramp up and to get ready for the season, to get in shape. And I think that's going to be as complicating a factor as anything else in trying to restart the season.
Do you have any theories on what happened with Kenny Atkinson and the Brooklyn Nets?
No, I don't have any. I have absolutely no idea what happened there, why they would make that move. Kenny Atkinson had done a terrific job there, had built a style of play that was going to work extremely well even when they got Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant back. They've done a great job developing players. I think one of the things that attracted those guys there is they looked at that roster and said, wow, they've got some guys who can play, and you wouldn't have said that when they first brought those guys to the Brooklyn Nets. So Kenny had done everything right. The only thing I can chalk it up to is that's just the NBA or pro sports in a lot of cases. But it was one of the more surprising ones to me. I'm not usually shocked or surprised, and on that one, I was. I mean, we had done the Brooklyn game just a couple days before when they had that huge comeback against the Celtics where, Karis LeVert scored 37 points in the fourth quarter in overtime. They'd showed great resilience. They'd won 2 out of 3 when they fired him, so it really did take me by surprise, and I'll be interested to see where Kenny lands because I think he'll be a sought-after guy, and I'll be interested to see what the Nets do.
Stan, I asked this seriously. I'm wondering, because I would love you to be the next head coach of the New York Knicks because I need you, but I'm wondering, and I asked this seriously, would you take that job if it were offered to you?
I'm not really interested in the New York Knicks now. I mean, first of all, there's a family history there. I mean, if anybody would be interested in that, and I'm not sure he is either, it would be my brother. And number two, I just, to me, I've said this, I'm different than a lot of coaches in looking at jobs. And to me, it's all about who you work for and who you work with. And everything I've seen over the last few years with that organization says that it's extremely dysfunctional.
What about the Nets?
The Nets, are a different situation, but both those teams have coaches now, and I think Mike Miller was doing a very good job. Jacques Vaughn's been a head coach before. He has a relationship with Sean Marks coming from San Antonio, and so I think it was unfortunate the season shutting down so quickly that Jacques may not get a chance to make a case for himself. But right now, I'm rooting for those two guys to stay in their jobs. But certainly of the two, the Nets are the better job. There's no question about that right now. I mean, the organization has been more stable. They've won more games. They have more talent. I don't think there's any question that's the better job of the two right now. We'll just see where they go with it.
All right, Stan Van Gundy, before we conclude here, Chris Cody has a list of nominees here. There is a Bollywood star who looks suspiciously like me. He's in action movies. He's got a gun in the movie posters, and we've been asking the listeners to name the action movie that I would star in. Chris has some nominees for you here, the name of the action movie, and we want at the end for you to pick one of them. Chris, give him a handful of the nominees.
All right, the best of the best so far, Stan. We got Stakin'. We got The Fudgative. We have Burritos Way. We have Flan in 60 Seconds. Soy Story. And Planet of the Crepes.
I'll tell you what, that's quite the list and very, very hard to choose from. I'm going to go with The Fudgative.
I think that's an excellent choice. What is your strategy about snacking at this time? Are you a saver or are you just a gorger?
You know what? I haven't been doing a lot of snacking, Dan. I've lost quite a bit of weight. I haven't been doing a lot of snacking, so I'm certainly not hoarding anything right now. I just eat a couple of 2 to 3 meals a day and leave it at that. But this is going to be a challenge for all of us in this time. I mean, it's only been 10 or 11 days, and I'm at a nice house and a pool and the whole thing, and the weather's been beautiful, and I'm still going crazy. And I think it's more the idea. It's not so much that I'm missing anything in particular. It's just that I can't do anything. I may not on a given day go out to eat, but I want to know I can go out to eat. I want to know I can go to a movie. I want to know I can watch a game. I can't do any of those things, and I'm already feeling, that a lot of my life has been taken from me, even though what I do on most days is just sit around my house.
All right, well, let's get you to host some radio shows with us. We'll talk to you later, Stan. Thank you for being on with us.
All right, guys.
See you, Stan. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Dan Graziano going to join us in just a second here on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Little NFL talk. Here's your SportsCenter update. Sources have told ESPN that because NFL teams are unable to oversee physicals due to the coronavirus outbreak, they are adding provisions in player contracts stating that failed physicals will result in forfeited signing bonus money. Red Sox pitcher Chris Sale will undergo Tommy John surgery. And finally, GameStop employees have been told to keep stores open because they believe they are an essential business amid the COVID-19 outbreak. SportsCenter is brought to you by Bolt 24. Being an athlete is 24/7, so stay hydrated with Bolt 24 with antioxidant, vitamins A and C, electrolytes from watermelon and sea salt, and no artificial sweeteners or flavors. Bolt 24, all-day hydration for all-day athletes. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
Got a lot of questions here for our NFL expert, Dan Graziano. Thank you for joining us, Dan. Let's bang through these. So the Patriots are going to do what at quarterback? Best guess.
Wait out the market like Bill Belichick does and see what kind of value arises. If Jameis Winston's price drops to where it's worth taking a shot and bringing him in and letting him try and be the starter, that's one thing. If Andy Dalton's price in trade is reasonable enough, then maybe they take a shot on that. Maybe they call the Indianapolis Colts for their old buddy Jacoby Brissett, see if he's available. But Bill Belichick and the Patriots, that's one of those organizations that does not panic, and they will move deliberately and carefully, and there may well be a solution that none of the rest of us can think of because we are not Bill Belichick.
The Colts, did they get better at quarterback with Phillip Rivers?
I think in the short term, yeah. I mean, look, he threw a lot of interceptions last year, but they just weren't able to do a lot of the things they wanted to do in their passing game with Jacoby Brissett, whether that's because he's not developed enough yet or whether it's because, he's just not as good as they thought he was. They feel like they're in a window where they're trying to win now, win quickly. They looked at Phillip Rivers and said, trouble in Los Angeles, yes, but they didn't protect him at all. Our offensive line can protect anybody. Let's see how he does behind that crew.
Dan, what's the ceiling for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next season?
Well, I think it's pretty high. I think being in the Saints division may limit it a little bit, although there's going to be a year coming up soon where the Saints suddenly aren't as good as they have been, and they'll wish they had cashed it in. But I think if Tom Brady can still play, the receivers are absolutely outstanding. I think the defense is probably better than people think, and I think it's a team that can definitely contend for and possibly win its division. And if you are that, then you're a contender for the whole thing.
Who did very well in free agency and who did very poorly?
Buffalo didn't make a lot of really exciting moves. Well, the Stephon Diggs, though, that's pretty exciting. But, yeah, they continued to sort of build their team the way that they want to, and I think that's good. I actually think Atlanta did pretty well, considering everybody went into it saying they don't have any cap space. They end up getting Dante Fowler and Todd Gurley and trading for Hayden Hurst, the tight end, to replace Austin Hooper. So, yeah, that NFC South might be a little more competitive this year. In terms of who did badly, I mean, I don't know. Like, did the Lions just rearrange some deck chairs on defense, or is it really going to be the mix that Matt Patricia wants now? That remains to be seen. I never like the big contracts that like the Giants gave James Bradbury and the Dolphins gave Byron Jones. I mean, those guys might be good players, but ultimately those contracts tend to cause problems down the road.
Dan Graziano with us on ESPN Radio. Does Buffalo have a quarterback?
Yeah, the opinions are split. It's as people like what Buffalo did, and then you get to the point in the conversation where you say, well, what do you think about the quarterback? And you hear, I'm not sure, or I think he can be good. I think what you have to look at with Buffalo, Brandon Beane, the GM, was in Carolina when they drafted Cam Newton, and I've actually talked to him about this. He sees some similarities between the way they were able to operate with Newton early in his career and the way that Buffalo is able to operate with Josh Allen. I don't think he's ever going to be the super accurate passer, but the question is, can you find ways to win in spite of that, as Carolina did with Cam? And he can bring some things to the table that other quarterbacks can in terms of running, and he can throw it a mile. So I think they have a shot with him.
As a Jet fan, this is the first time in 20 years I can ask this question. The best team in the AFC East is blank.
Well, I don't think the Patriots are all the way together yet. I mean, as the season was starting tomorrow with the rosters the way that they look right now, you'd probably say Buffalo. But, you got to give the Patriots the benefit of the doubt that they'll continue to add during the offseason. I mean, Jets I think they're on the way. I think they still have more work to do, but they wanted to address the offensive line. They've done a bunch of that. And, we'll see what they put together at receiver and some of the other stuff they have to put around Sam Darnold. But I think he's legit, and I think they're on their way.
Where's Cam Newton going to end up? Cam Newton.
I still think the Chargers are the most likely landing spot there. It just makes a lot of sense, but I think it could be a while. I mean, then not being able to give him a physical is an issue. I mean, that foot is a big question, and teams are going to want to check it out before signing him. I think he'll get released, so I say signing him. So I think the Chargers seem the most likely, but we're early enough in that process that it's hard to make a pick.
Can you explain to us the decision-making involved and whether the union should fight these coronavirus clauses?
The decision-making is a way around the fact that no one can talk to each other in person. And I think the league put out a memo a couple of days ago that suggested teams put contingency language in their trade agreements to allow trades to be voided as a result of held physicals. And in terms of I don't think there's anything in the CBA that prohibits it. Obviously, I'm still kind of reading through the new CBA, but I don't think there's anything in there that prohibits it, but especially if the player signs it. But no, I think it's the union and the players wanted to get free agency going. The league office wanted to get free agency going. There were some teams and some agents that weren't happy about it. But in terms of getting the process going, this is something that I think they feel like they have to do, or else all the signings would be on hold and there could be total chaos down the road. I mean, one or two failed physicals a year pretty much happens in free agency, and now it'll just be delayed in terms of the effect. But I think they felt like, for better or for worse, whether they were right or wrong, they felt like they had to get this going this week, and this is one of the ways they could pull it off.
All right, Dan, we appreciate the time. I think we lost Dan Le Batard. So Dan Graziano, we're up against the break here. We do appreciate the time. Thank you for the news, sir, and stay safe during the coronavirus outbreak here.
Same to you guys. Thanks very much.
Okay, you got it. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Jeremy Fowler going to be there in just a second. Talk about what's going on in the NFL. Here's your SportsCenter update. The Big Three Basketball League is working to launch Under Quarantine, a reality show-style 3-on-3 tournament. It's Big Brother meets Big Three. League founder Ice Cube told the Undefeated's Mark Spears. Major League Baseball says that its minor league players will be paid through April 8th. Major League Soccer will extend the suspension of its season through May 10th. And finally, the Cambridge Bar and Grill in Cambridge, Minnesota announced all orders totaling over $25 now come with a free roll of toilet paper, a product some consumers are having difficulty finding due to shortages from customers stocking up for the coronavirus quarantine. Where do you need a Blink security camera? On your porch to help protect deliveries? Helping keep your family safe when you travel? How about alerting you when the kids get home from school? Where do you need Blink security cameras? Visit BlinkProtect.com/Dan for all the latest headlines and information. Tune in the SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day. All right, Jeremy Fowler going to join us here in just a second on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Le Batard's internet connection is down once again. So none of us have froze. Billy is as relaxed as ever. Chris has just got a smile on his face because he always has a smile on his face. Roy is miserable because he's always miserable. And I don't know what Tony's doing today, but he is the best looking damn guy on this show. That's for sure. Anyway, let's bring on Jeremy Fowler to join us here. ESPN senior writer, covering the Steelers and more. Wrote an interesting piece yesterday, and thank you for joining us, Jeremy, that teams are unable to oversee physicals due to the coronavirus outbreak. They have added provisions in player contracts stating that failed physicals will result in fortified signing bonus money, league sources have told Jeremy and ESPN. How do you think the players are going to react to this?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's a point of contention already among some player agents and some teams because, they want some sort of standard language here that says that, look, for the most part, they're going to be fine if they agree to terms on a contract, that they should be paid out that contract unless there's a crazy circumstance. So the issue they have is if you agree to terms on a deal now and then you can't take a physical for, say, 3 months because of this coronavirus, you can't get to the team facility until then, and then for some reason you don't pass a physical, then you would have to forfeit that money. Usually it's the other way around where you have to take a physical to even get a deal done. So we're seeing that happening, like with Tom Brady taking his physical with an independent doctor in New York. You can still do those things, but the team wants to look at you later on. So there's a lot of gray area. This is sort of the issue with trying to move forward with a new league year at the same time where we have a pandemic. There's just things like this have to get sorted out, and nobody really has a clear-cut answer.
Do you think it will get sorted out, and how would they sort it out? They get somewhere. It doesn't seem fair, so I would imagine that they'll meet in the middle there, the owners and the players, because what is being proposed or what you're hearing doesn't seem fair at all.
Right, and so a lot of players are essentially agreeing to these deals or signing them and then just hoping for the best, knowing that they have to just stay in shape, which is kind of a weird thing. And usually there aren't a lot of failed physicals, maybe 1 or 2 a year where a deal gets rescinded. So for the most part, it's not a problem, but, it's you would hate to see somebody lose money like that over that issue. So, their teams might take a softer line. Not all teams are going that hard on it. They can that would be probably a PR nightmare if they were taking away money 3 months from now because of the virus.
I think the real interesting one here is Cam Newton because of all the injury history there and, teams are going to be hesitant. Yeah, that's going to be like, how are teams going to navigate? How is Cam going to navigate through this? It's going to be difficult, no?
Right. I know there's some trepidation with some teams because they don't know what they would be getting even if they looked into them. And then there's the fact that the quarterback musical chairs are pretty much taken up. I mean, there's not a whole lot left there. You have the Chargers, who it looks like they're going with Tyrod Taylor at this point. Now, maybe they'll reassess that if Cam Newton is released, which I don't expect to happen today. But there really hasn't been a lot of traction with trade partners. The Panthers were never going to get a first-round pick for him in the first place, especially now because of the issues with the physical. And so most teams feel pretty good that he will be healthy next year, but they just don't know for sure. He's putting out Instagram videos and he looks good in his workouts, but that only shows you so much. So it's an issue, and, maybe around the summertime there'll be more clarity with Cam, but you could also sign him just based on his pedigree. That he has an MVP, and maybe he can return to that, but it's hardly a guarantee.
Jeremy Fowler, ESPN senior NFL writer, also covers the Steelers and more for ESPN. He is with us here on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Because you cover the Steelers, it begs the question, Antonio Brown, can you envision Antonio Brown going with Tom Brady to Tampa Bay?
Well, I can envision it. In this scenario, I don't know that the Bucs need it. They have 2 elite receivers in Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, have some good tight ends. I think it was more of an issue with the Patriots where Tom didn't want to see him leave. And if he re-signed there, maybe they could bring him back just for more firepower. I do know that Brady and Brown have had some correspondence in recent months about, hey, maybe we can play together one day. But that's hardly a slam dunk. I know Bruce Arians does not have a good relationship with Antonio Brown. They used to, but over the last year or two, they've had some verbal sparring online. And, I just don't see that in Tampa, at least. Brown's a far away from even getting suspended, let alone playing. You have to go through a lot of steps with counseling and checking NFL boxes away from the field, make sure you're doing okay before they can even hand you a suspension for all your wrongdoings. He's not even there yet, and so he's a long way from playing.
Jeremy Fowler with us here on ESPN Radio. Ben Roethlisberger gave an interview where he said he expects himself to have not just a big year this year, he expects the team to also have a big year, but he said big years ahead of him. Do you expect Ben Roethlisberger, as a guy who covers the Steelers for ESPN, can you still envision Roethlisberger having not a big season, but big years ahead of him?
I'm not going to go that far yet. I think he'll come back and play pretty well just because he's still a top 10 quarterback. He's a high level guy. It's just there are still some uncertainties whether he can get the velocity on the ball coming off that elbow injury. Now he's on the right track and passed all the steps he needs to, so perhaps he can get there, but that's just something he has to show. Now the Steelers feel good about it enough where, they don't really haven't planned to sign any sort of starting quarterback. I know there's some speculation about Jameis Winston. I don't know if that will happen, but either way, he would be the backup. I mean, Big Ben, they're ready for him for the next 2 years to play out a very lucrative contract, and they feel pretty good about where he is. But losing Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell those last few years, it's uncertain how this offense is going to do with a lack of weapons. They just don't have a lot of firepower right now and need to add some in the draft.
How mad are the Steelers? I know that Stugotz asked you about Antonio Brown, but how mad are the Steelers or compassionate? Where will you find in the Steeler locker room something that extends into concern and compassion for Antonio Brown?
Well, I think it's all the above. There was some anger there for sure, but a lot of people really did care for him when he was going through his problems, and then when he eventually left the team. But they knew that Pittsburgh was a safe haven for him, that he shouldn't have left or forced his way out because they felt like it was sort of a cocoon for him where, if he was late to meetings or had some issues, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers would manage it all and get him to the field because that was really the only way to manage him was to not micromanage him. And, so they knew when he went to Oakland that he really didn't stand a chance. And so now I think there's still some players that wouldn't mind playing with him if he could get his life in order and get back on the field. They feel like he's that much of a difference maker, and a lot of guys in that locker room were pretty good friends with him. But he also had some problems, too, with his explosive behavior and, the way he would sort of get angry and have the mood swings that you wouldn't expect. And so I doubt he's back in Pittsburgh, but, he still has relationships there, and people do care about him.
Are you willing to make any sort of amateur diagnoses when it comes to everything with him where I understand that he was problematic before that, but the public didn't have – literally the public had no idea that Antonio Brown was a problem child through week 16 before it all came apart it came apart after one game and in one offseason.
Right, and then it was just an avalanche after that, and I think Pittsburgh – managed that, and they also protected him. They kept him out of harm's way in some ways. There were police calls to his house over multiple years that never really got released until after he left. Now, maybe that's just because people started to dig into it after that because he had become a problem, but these are things you just didn't hear about unless you went looking for them, and until 2018 or so, there wasn't a lot of reason to look, 2019. And so I try to focus on the anecdotal part of it, which is you talk to several players, you talk to people around him. They specifically reference the mood swings, how he'd be fine 1 minute, he'd get really angry and start cussing at people the next. And so you'd have some of that. I don't know what that means as far as an official diagnosis. I wouldn't go there, but it's the personality was very hard to deal with for a lot of ex-players and a lot of associates who worked for him for a short period of time because they'd eventually be fired or things would happen where they couldn't really work with their D anymore.
Jeremy, 5,000 yards and 33 touchdowns a year ago. Is it as simple as the 30 interceptions as to why Jameis Winston is struggling to find a team, to find a home? Because guys like that normally find, first off, they don't get let go by their team. Secondly, they find the new home pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's the fact that he's 5 years in and are making these bad decisions that the Bucs couldn't trust him. This is a guy they drafted first overall, wanted to give every benefit of the doubt. And so it became really clear at the NFL Combine that not only were they sort of waffling on him publicly, but even privately, you heard rumblings of the team kind of ripping him a little bit when they talked to the people around the league that they just couldn't trust him, and he looks like an MVP one play and then a third stringer the next. And so I think that just caught up to Tampa, and a lot of teams right now, as a result, do look at him as a backup, but there is a lot of raw talent still there that's probably untapped. I doubt he ends up in New England, but I just can't help but wonder, like, if you get a coach like Belichick, can you fix him? If you can reduce the mistakes. I mean, that would be pretty poetic if you brought him in and they could do that and use the talent he has to move the ball downfield. Probably unlikely, but right now there just aren't a lot of homes for him unless you try to do the Ryan Tannehill formula from last year, be like a high-level backup, go somewhere where there's maybe a shaky quarterback situation and try to get in some games and show you can do it again.
Jeremy, thank you for being on with us. We appreciate it.
Hey, anytime, guys. Appreciate it.
If you missed any of the show, you can listen to all 3 hours of the Dan Le Batard Show, plus our Miami-only hour and our Best of Podcast on demand in the ESPN app. And subscribe to the Le Batard and Friends Podcast Network featuring South Beach Sessions, Stupidity, and Mystery Crate. Please rate and subscribe. New episodes are posted every week wherever you get your podcasts.
Despite the limitations, we keep trying to churn out that content. There is a new Mystery Crate for you to digest if you have missed the local hour this week, because that is the one thing that took a hit this week, that and my internet. But what we have here on Mystery Crate, we've got the guys together, and you can enjoy yourself listening to that if you are bored during quarantine. We will get to Cody Zeller of the Charlotte Hornets to tell us what he's learning about today. He will join us in about 10 minutes. Greg Cody of the Miami Herald is about to do a Back in My Day. But just before we came back on air, this is an actual conversation that Stugotz and Chris Cody had. They were talking about Brooks Koepka, and they were talking about the fact that he had just hit a drive 3 football fields long, left-handed, and both of them muttered under their breath some version of, "We get it, Brooks, you're good at this golf thing." And then both of them mumbled, frustrated, haters, jealous, bleep hole. And it's not because they don't like him. It's just because he's better at golf than any of us are at anything.
No, he's better with his offhanded golf than any of us are with our strong hand at anything. It's unbelievable. Fowler went out and fired a 90 left-handed, played a full round, fired a 90. I am lefty. I shoot like 190. It's unbelievable.
Let's get to Chris Cody's father, Greg Cody. Bristol, go ahead and play the Back in My Day, the musty music and production.
And now, it is time to take a trip down memory lane. Here's your guy, Greg Cody, with Back in My Day.
Quarantining. Okay, so the world turned upside down within the past 10 days or so, and we're all coming to grips with it, right? Bizarre phrases like social distancing, self-quarantining, and shelter-in-place have entered the lexicon. I am not here to make light of a grave situation. Hell, I was listening to the New York University Dr. Celine Gounder talk about this on the Le Batard Show this week, and it was the first time I curled up in the fetal position under a desk since JFK and the Cuban Missile Crisis. What I am getting a kick out of are people acting like staying at home is the biggest burden in the world. Are you insane? I'm loving it. I'm lazy. I don't want to go to work. I'm antisocial. I don't want to be around people. I'm fine padding around the house all day in a T-shirt and boxer shorts, playing Ms. Pac-Man, noodling around on the computer, writing, making an omelet, working on the next Greg Cody Show podcast, out every Monday. Subscribe, rate, and review, listening to music, and actively not turning on the TV for news updates. This is nothing new to me. I spent my entire childhood alone in my bedroom at 1440 playing Stratomatic baseball. Rolling dice, baby. My mother and the other hens were in the other room playing Mahjong. 4 crack, 3 bam, as I was hunkered in, not only playing baseball on a piece of cardboard, but doing play-by-play like Kurt Gowdy. And you wonder why I only had like 3 dates in the entirety of my high school years. My mother always used to tell people, Greg loves being alone. He's a self-amuser. Hey, if you're bored already, search around the house and find one of those weird rectangular things filled with pulp and words. It's called a book. Reach up under the high shelf of your closet and find the Monopoly game you last played in 1983. We are well equipped in 2020 to stay at home in a way we weren't
during the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. I survived that. I can survive this. Nowadays, you can spend hours just crawling down rabbit holes on the internet. And TV, my God, my wife and I just binge-watched the first 2 seasons of Shrill, starring A.D. Bryant on Hulu. Highly recommended, by the way. I'm great with staying at home. The alternative is me standing in the Dolphins locker room during media access, where the only people there are the long snapper nobody ever wants to talk to and a dozen bored, loitering reporters. Meanwhile, on South Beach, spring breakers are still congregating and partying, seemingly unable to not socialize. Their oblivious selfishness astoundingly reckless and dangerous as they insanely volunteer themselves as modern-day lepers. Me? I'm happily alone in the abode and about to get back to what I was doing. The Stratomatic game is dusted off. It's 1967, middle of the 5th, and Yaz is up. Come on, Dice. I'm Greg Cody, and that's how it was back in my day.
Yeah.
Cody Zeller. Cody Zeller tells us about what he's learning today. Next.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Cody Zeller going to join us in just a second here on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, our daily check-in with Cody. Here's your SportsCenter update. The Big Three Basketball League is working to launch under quarantine a reality show style 3-on-3 tournament. It's Big Brother meets Big Three, league founder Ice Cube told the Undefeated's Mark Spears. Major League Baseball says that its minor league players will be paid through April 8th. Major League Soccer will extend the suspension of its season through May 10th. And finally, a real estate website is seeking a job applicant to fly to Dubai and spend a week testing out a luxury apartment. The website, Dubai Property for Sale, announced it is offering one lucky person the chance to be flown out to Dubai for an all-expenses-paid trip for 1 week of sunshine, luxury, and testing out one of our high-end apartments. The applicant would then be a finalist for a more permanent position as a property broker finds buyers and coordinates sales of the high-end residences. Weird. Wendy's has breakfast now. We're talking fresh cracked eggs on every breakfast sandwich. Yep, it's going to be America's favorite breakfast. Download the Wendy's app for deals on your new favorite breakfast. Yep, for this, see you at Wendy's in the morning. Available at participating U.S. Wendy's. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in the SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
We will check in with Cody Zeller of the Charlotte Hornets for as many days in a row as he will have us. He has told us that he is trying to learn something new every day while he is in quarantine. So tell us about your learning yesterday and whatever learning plans you have for today, Cody, and thank you again for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me back on. This is the third day that I've been on, and I told my brother that, I was going back on here for the third day, and so this is more success than you've had in any of your dating life. They've done with you after the first date, so it's really an honor to be back. But anyway, so yesterday, I went on a run. Last time I talked to you guys, I was going around, and it was a great run, beautiful day in Charlotte. It was actually pretty cool to see all the, kids are outside playing, a lot of families. There's a couple of us planting flowers. There's a family of 4 who's out for a bike ride. So in the midst of all the craziness and all the stuff that we got going on, it was actually kind of cool to see, there was actually a little bit of good and positivity that might come from this. So anyway, the run, and then other than that, I did some laundry. I cleaned up. We had some news that broke that we aren't allowed to go in the facility anymore. So I'm actually road tripping home right now, 9-hour drive from Charlotte back to Indiana. So I'd rather be stuck at home with some home cooking rather than stuck at home alone in Charlotte. So I'm road tripping home right now.
Okay, so there's no time for learning today. It's 9 hours of driving. Maybe this might change your plan, though. If you're going to now no longer be quarantined just by yourself and you're going to be with other people, there might be less learning available to you, less failing. You have failed at the guitar. You have failed at reading successfully without falling asleep. You have failed at woodworking. Yeah. So are you going to continue down this path, or is our experiment over? Now you're just going to go spend time with your family and enjoy runs through neighborhoods where you can enjoy families planting flowers.
Yeah, well, here's the deal. So my brother obviously hasn't gotten any of these updates for the week, and so I told him that I'm going to be in his house. And they're remodeling their house right now,
and he said, I have a ceiling fan I need you to switch out. So we got an old one. We're going to put a new one in. And so he obviously hasn't had any updates of all the failures that I've had this week. So he's going to trust me working with electricals in his house. And so I have no experience with that. I have one time I hung a ceiling fan in a house, and 2 years later it came back in the inspection report that it was done wrong. But nobody died and the house didn't burn down, so I don't really see an issue with it. So anyway, so I think we'll have more updates to come, especially if I'm hanging some ceiling fans in the days to come.
Does Cody Zeller need a ladder to hang a ceiling fan?
No way.
No, not at all, actually. No, not at all. He's got some painting for me to do as well, so, obviously 2 7-footers. So, we'll be able to cover some ground.
All right. Well, we will check in with you again. Have a safe drive. We will talk to you on Monday. We want to. I still got a bunch of questions. I should ask you here before you go. How much money you raised? I know you started a lemonade stand in order to try and keep Kemba Walker, where you were selling lemonade for 25 cents a cup. I'm just wondering how much money you raised, and clearly you failed there as well.
Well, it was a couple of things went wrong. First of all, the competition on the street was pretty tough, and also the kids on the street are pretty good negotiators. So I gave away a lot of free cups of lemonade. So once again, all learning experiences. You learn from your mistakes. So obviously Kemba left, so it didn't raise quite enough money. So we'll stay tuned.
Seems like a lot of people wanted him to stay.
Yes. Cody, we appreciate your time. Again, we will check in with you on Monday. Thank you for making the time.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right. I cannot wait to hear about his ceiling fan adventures. Oh, what a wonderful, wonderful thing that would be to be able to fix a ceiling fan without needing a ladder like that.
Why does his brother call him pro, though? I mean, seriously. How are you not having money?
I mean, they're all sort of quarantined right now, Stu.
Yeah, the pros aren't coming to the house right now. We will do something here next that is always very popular around here. Stugotz is perpetually mispronouncing words. John Amici is one of the most brilliant people that we know inside or outside of sports. John Amici has never correctly won the game where he wins by picking more correct words that Stugotz has mispronounced than wrong ones. So we will do that next.